Pursuant to Internal Revenue Service guidance, be advised that any federal tax advice contained in this program is not intended to be used, and it cannot be used by any person or entity for the purpose of avoiding any tax penalties that may be imposed by the Internal Revenue Service or any other U.S. federal taxing authority or agency, or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any transaction or matter addressed in this show. The opinions expressed by the host and the guests are their own and may not be used as authoritative advice. Any use of this material without the written consent of the host is strictly prohibited.
Welcome back. I am your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy. This is the IRS Radio Hour, and we're on AM 560, The Answer.
The Answer.
Every Sunday at 5 o'clock.
And, Steve, this week's question has come from our listeners, is how long after bankruptcy do I have to wait to buy a home?
Well, this is a common question. I get this a lot, this question. Got a call this week, not only from a listener, but from somebody, a prior client. He said, well, I'm trying to get a home loan. I just came out of bankruptcy. How long do I have to wait? I've helped people as short as 1 year from the bankruptcy to get a home loan. I think it's changed since 2008. It was a lot easier before 2008 to get a mortgage than it is now. But just recently, I helped a couple who had been out of bankruptcy for just barely 2 years, and they got a good mortgage and bought a home. So it doesn't. I always hear, isn't it 10 years? Isn't it 7 years? And what the 7 to 10 years really talks about is what your credit report, how long they report on your credit report, how long you've been in bankruptcy. But actually, your credit report talks about all of your financial history for 7 to 10 years. And 7 to 10 years really depends on the reporting agencies. There's 3 different reporting agencies. Some go 7 years, some go back 10 years. And that's why you hear this that it's on you. It'll ruin your credit for 7 to 10 years. Not always true. Sometimes the best way to improve your credit kind of counterintuitively is to file bankruptcy, because I get rid of all of my, usually if I'm filing bankruptcy, it means that I'm behind in a lot of debt. So when I'm behind in debt, that is reported, my late 60 days, late 90 days. The longer that goes, the lower my score goes. So if I can file bankruptcy, I'm not late anymore. And so I can start rebuilding my credit. If I had to pay back all that debt, it would take years. And by the time I could do that, my score could have already rebounded. So I've seen people 2 years out of bankruptcy in the high sixes, because you can repair your credit after bankruptcy, and you don't have to wait 7 to 10 years. But I think one of the biggest questions also involves
foreclosures.
Foreclosures, because I help a lot of people who are in foreclosure, and that's a different rule. And sometimes you file bankruptcy, and now I'm no longer obligated on that mortgage, but I'm still on the deed to the house. So until that goes through and there's a sale and then the deed is transferred, I still own that home. And so if I try, even though I've been out of bankruptcy for 2 years, if the foreclosure was after my bankruptcy discharge, that's going to be a impediment to getting a loan modification. The Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, which are the quasi-governmental organizations that buy most mortgages, they have rules of now 2 years. You have to be out of foreclosure for 2 years, sometimes 3 years. There's different mortgage lenders have different rules, and so sometimes you have to go about and find different lenders. So again, some won't do it for 4 years. So it really depends on what lender you're going to use. So
like I was saying, if it's bankruptcy, so you're telling me bankruptcy is different than the
foreclosure, because how the foreclosures work are is independent from bankruptcy. So again, sometimes I want to file bankruptcy before my house is sold, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And if you're in foreclosure and you're having some financial issues outside on top of the foreclosures,
how can they get in touch with you?
And before, this is important because too many people come to me after the house was sold, and then here in Illinois, they can get a deficiency against you. And a deficiency is the difference between what they sell the house for and what you owe them. Okay, so there might be a big gap there because of the values of homes have gone down. If I haven't paid in 2 or 3 years, that accumulation, what they call arrears, has gotten to be a big number. And sometimes that's that big number of arrears that can qualify you. And remember, I talked about that that's kind of a misnomer qualification. But you can overcome the presumption of abuse given how much your secured debt is. And so if I'm behind in my mortgage, my secured debt is very large, and it might make a Chapter 7 something I can do where if I wait till after it's sold, the debt is no longer secured. And because it's no longer secured debt, I don't use it in to overcome the presumption of abuse. And so now
the presumption of abuse means?
In the chapters, to overcome the presumption of abuse, if my income is more than the average income of a family my size, then there's a presumption that it would be abusive for me to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Okay, so I can overcome that presumption and still file a Chapter 7, even if my income is very high, if I have a lot of secured debt. So if I'm behind in my mortgage, if I have car payments, and I have a lot of other secured debt, I can overcome this presumption of abuse. So I've had people come to see me, I lost my home last year, and I want to get out of all this debt, but I can't help them in a Chapter 7. They have to go into a Chapter 13, and a Chapter 13 is going to be 5 years of making payments. So it's important. So if you're in foreclosure now, call me now. Don't wait till after it's over. Okay? You could get me at 312-664-6649.
And where else could they?
Then go on the web. It's chicagotaxteam.com. Now, my blog also has a lot about Chapter 7, Chapter 13, foreclosure defense. All of that is on my blog. I address a lot of these issues on my blog. So if you have a specific question, go there, find the answer, or call me. Again, it's 312-664-6649.
And speaking of the answer, we're at AM 560, The Answer.
And we're here every Sunday at 5 o'clock.
And we'll see you on the other side.
IRS Radio Hour.